Hello. So good morning, everyone. My name is Javier Garcia. I am the head of country engagement for ActionAid for Europe and the Americas. So welcome to this hybrid event, which is about to discussing opportunities in 2023 for women-led and youth-led organizations in the Black Sea and Eastern Neighborhood region. So it's a pleasure for us to welcome you here, the ones that are online and the ones that are here in Brussels. And let me just give the floor to my colleague Hara, that has been already with me working closely to prepare this event with 12 speakers. So bear in mind that we will be very strict with the timing, but welcome to enjoy the event.
Yes, again, thank you very much for being here. Only to say, as we already said, that we are going to have two roundtables, one with women-led organizations coming from Romania and Ukraine, and that later on we have a roundtable with different speakers, donor, think tanks, and others, and that we are super happy to have you here. And let's have we hope that let's have a fruitful discussion. And I pass the floor to the moderator of the first part of the session, Ponte, or Federal Director on New Alliances.
Hello, good morning, everyone, and welcome, speakers. It's such a pleasure to be in presence for those of us that are here, actually. We had a little bit of interaction. I'll do a brief introduction to the first session this morning. And maybe it's useful to say that we're very happy to host as ActionAid, but ActionAid is only starting to engage with the region very recently in 2022. So there's a lot of learning for us to start with. And this is the attitude that we always try to have in relation to partners that we meet first time, prompted by events like it has been the case during the response to the war-related. However, we support, we try to support civil society in many contexts. So our ambition and our thinking has to extend beyond the emergency response. That's what we try to do through youth and women-led organization in other parts of the world. And in fact, even though not with the same organization, even in Europe, it's been almost a decade that we have engaged with several organizations based in the eastern part of the European Union, but not beyond that. As for some of the members of ActionAid have been running domestic programs for a while now. And because of the funding that we managed to receive from the European Union in particular, we do have links with organizations beyond the original ActionAid person. So we cannot but look eastward with interest and with willingness to learn and to expand our knowledge and reach even in many ways. The difficulties that we probably will hear from our guests have been magnified by the war, probably in many ways. Organizations have been somehow distracted from their original focus. We observe that this is a trend in many other theaters. So we will be very happy to learn a comparison and contrast where it's needed about the actual realities of different, in countries that have been first, like everyone else, hit by COVID and then hit by war. We do expect to hear about the challenges that are emerging in funding, the restrictions that are emerging or not resolved due to administrative and legislative frameworks. And we will be hearing from colleagues, knowing that there has been a lot, and maybe we'll come back to that later, there has been a lot of study, policy research, recommendations already. For example, Romanian network of NGOs have produced a very thorough report that I was going through yesterday, which is structuring recommendation in a very systematic way. But what we try to do as ActionAid is to hear directly from the people on the ground, because we need to reach knowledge that is created through policy research with experience on the ground. And I think a common trait of what we are observing now is that there's been a lot of research tracking and monitoring what was happening in terms of civic spaces being shrunk or being challenged through the COVID crisis, but there is not yet a body of research that is mapping what is happening because of the war. So that's another crisis in a way that is intersecting with a situation that was challenging in many ways. And after all, I think that we will have to learn something about, we will have an opportunity to learn something about how civic spaces are expanded or shrunk in this part of the world, comparing what is happening elsewhere. There is a prevailing narrative, it seems, in the, across the world that society can do without intermediary bodies, in a way, where political leadership talk directly to the people and consensus is built without a connection through intermediary organization. But how that really functions and how the quality of democracy is protected, it's an issue for debate. Because we are sitting here in Brussels at the center of, the European Union, one could start observing what that means for liberal democracies, the Western liberal democratic model, which is one, it's not the only one, but that is where NGOs in general have been rooted for many years. And if this model of Western liberal democracy is made meaningless because people are only called for votes every now and then, but recognize that democracy is a process, right? It's not a moment. Then what we will observe and we will hear from our colleagues in Eastern Europe, but is a matter of concern for any civil society organization in Europe, I would say. But within that, there's also quite a lot that is happening now because of the war, because luckily or unluckily, we will hear there's a lot of resources pouring into the region that were not there before. How are they managed? Are they managed in the interest of the fragile civil society that exists in several countries, or is it not? We will want to hear. In some countries, there is an accession process as well. So these things are monitored by state institutions. And therefore, there's a lot to talk. We will proceed by hearing an overview and a reflection by our distinguished Odysseia Lutsevich from Chatham House Ukraine Forum. She will give us an overview to start with. She's online. She couldn't join in person, but we are very happy to have her with us. And then we will also hear from more direct experiences from Yuliya, Daria, Nadia, and Anna that will be introduced later here from Brussels. So, Odysseia, over to you, and thanks for being with us.
Thank you very much, Marco, Javier, for inviting me. I'm pleased to meet ActionAid. I have been working on Ukrainian civil society both in Ukraine since 2007 and then in the region. I lived in Georgia and worked at Europe House there right after Russian invasion. And I always was impressed and energized by the quality of civil society, especially in Ukraine, how it was in a way a driver and an inspiration for many changes in Ukrainian, politics, civic culture, especially this was strengthened after the Revolution of Dignity. So I'm really pleased you are starting to get a stronger footprint in the region at the time when there's a lot of needs, and actually it's a historical moment for the whole of the European continent. I'm not saying it lightheartedly. I do believe that the way Europe will come out of this war will define the next 21st century. In a way, 21st century started with this Russian illegal aggression of Ukraine on the 24th of February. And I would like also to thank the European international civil society for immense solidarity. I think Ukraine is able to be where it is now, successfully repelling Russian aggression, having a very strong confidence that it can actually win this war, thanks to the fact that Europeans opened their hearts and their homes for Ukrainians, and the European Union as an institution for the first time allowed Ukrainian refugees to get into the European Union with the very favorable conditions, easy. And I think it's is a tremendous assistance and again, unprecedented event. But when you ask yourself why it was possible for the European Union to take this kind of policy, it is because of all the reforms that Ukrainians did in order to approximate its systems to the European Union. So, for example, the fact that Ukrainians had visa-free travel, unlike some of the countries in the Middle East, because you often have this comparison between the way Ukrainian refugees, for example, are treated and refugees from the Middle East and the global South. But we should remember that this, if you want, positive discrimination happened because Ukraine implemented very strong anti-corruption reform, biometric passports, reform in the security sector. I'm just saying this because I think it's important to understand where Ukraine stands in terms of its political development and how, in a way, prepared it came for this unfortunate aggression. So international civil society, NGOs, groups like yours, umbrella organizations, they're a real safety net for Ukrainians to, in a way, have this safety, and especially for women and children, as we know that they are so disproportionately affected, and also because only Ukrainian women and children de facto can flee to safety in Ukraine. Men are not allowed to exit Ukraine because of the martial law. So all of this, I'm saying mainly because just for us to remember that this war is not over, right? We went through a difficult year, the year that shaped in a way modern Ukrainian nation, that in a way also stimulated certain rethinking in the European Union, especially about the place of Ukraine in the family of European nations. And it seemed like the answer is that Ukraine does belong because it defends the European way of life. But we are facing a horrific destruction and a very high price for this choice in Ukraine. I don't have to give you numbers, but just a couple. Basically, it's easy to remember. 1/3 of Ukrainian economy has been destroyed. It means, third of people lost their jobs, companies, income, and Ukraine is now spending 40% of its budget for defense and security. It means that the most vulnerable groups, women, elderly, children, especially those very close to the front line, are really suffering and taking a burden, not just of security to their life, but also emotional trauma, economic suffering, and this displacement that took place in millions, roughly 14 million, with half of people actually being in Ukraine. So what are the needs right now if you as an organization, is planning a strategy as an umbrella? I understand that you're more like an umbrella group that brings together various civil society organizations. I would say that the task for the next year is to help Ukraine sustain its home front, sustain its human capital, sustain its economy. And that means that as much as possible, partnering with organizations inside the country as much as possible. And Ukraine has a very developed ecosystem of various civil society organizations, from volunteer groups to charities to private foundations to community associations to young volunteer groups. And during the war, the number of registered charities increased 10 times. So Ukraine is doing everything to basically process, if you want, whatever resources there are to support war effort and to support the population. Today, already around 70% of Ukrainian civil society groups are involved in one way or the other of recovery. And what they are doing is very much along the lines as your group is engaged. It's helping displaced people, it's helping women, it's helping children, it's helping local governments to plan recovery. It's basically, they're even willing to engage in the infrastructural planning, preparing engineering information, helping repair water pipes, anything pretty much that will help sustaining normal life as much as possible. So there will be a big track of engagement around recovery of Ukraine. At this point, the process is quite centrally driven by Ukrainian government, by EU Commission, by G7, and they have already set up this platform for recovery. But I do think there is a space, and there must be a very significant role for the resources that groups like yours can actually bring into this effort. And your added value could be, on one hand, because you're working in outside of Ukraine with groups of displaced Ukrainians, let's say, who want to come back and have a vision for Ukraine, connecting them also to what is going on in Ukraine, so that Ukrainians and Europeans jointly can shape this vision of new Ukraine. I think you, as being based in the European Union, can help also bring best practices. And just to finish up, I would like to say that the underlying process of this is European integration. You are sitting in Brussels, and for Ukraine, an indispensable element of the future is becoming member of the European Union. So whatever could be done on your part to actually stimulate this process, to unblock European Union enlargement engine, this will be a transformative decision that will eventually bring security and stability in Europe. Because if Ukraine will remain in the gray zone, in some kind of limbo state of permanent corridor waiting for its membership, we will all be worse off, and we will have simply more and more instability. I stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Alicia. And I think what you have done is to focus specifically on what should be the way forward seen or from Ukraine. We will continue to focus on Ukraine now, bearing in mind that we're trying to see what this crisis is producing and what learnings are there for countries beyond Ukraine as well. The response to the emergency is obviously happening within country, but it's happening in neighboring countries, and it's also happening in countries of Western Europe. Being an Italian, I cannot but remind, for example, that we have 230,000 Ukrainians coming to Italy, and similar numbers happen there. What ActionAid has been doing is actually trying to respond directly to the humanitarian emergencies through partners, but also in the countries where we have a presence because of the existing and increasing presence of Ukrainian refugees there. But thank you very much. I hope you can be with us and be part of the ensuing debate. Now we're starting the first session with our guests. I did mention before the FONT study that the Romanian platform study that was published in 2021. I think that study did address and systematize the definition of the challenges around 4 pillars. It's very interesting. The regulatory environment, the financial sustainability for local organization, the cooperation that local organizations are able to enact vis-a-vis their own government or international organizations, and their sheer organizational capacity because some of them are small. So maybe we should not necessarily follow this, but I found it very useful framing. And as I said, both that study done by the Romanian platform of civil society organization, the CSO meter that we probably discuss later today, and reviewed by the Eastern Partnership Index, all portray a situation that was already impacted by COVID, but not so much yet analyzing what is happening because of the war. So how we do leverage lessons from the ground, how can we strengthen the resilience of civil society, and particularly a civil society that is a political force for transformation, that has the ability to transact power, as we would say in ActionAid, is what we're trying to get from our guests, together with advice, if you may, on what certainly international organizations like ActionAid in civil society, but also intergovernmental organizations, the EU that Orisha mentioned very much, UN agencies and all that, how they have been useful so far and how we have not been useful. Because in some cases, we know people that parachuted in new contexts and struggled with interpreting it. So first, as I said, we will stay in Ukraine. So Yuliya, your name is Lyubych, right? Surname, right? Yuliya Lyubych, representative of STAN in Ukraine. You have 10 minutes, and thanks for your intervention.
Yeah, my name is Yuliya Lyubych. My organization is a youth civil rights organization. Now we're located in the western part of Ukraine, but this organization originally we started our activity in România, which is occupied already for 9 years. And we are in like this.
Speak up.
Louder. Yes. Oh my God. So my points are about how to survive in these circumstances, and about how to about our organization. We are very focused on right now on how to live after these challenges, after war, after multiple crises we are coming through. And we talk a lot about the importance of post-war development, of bringing again society together and bringing for development for future. Not only reacting on humanitarian action. During last year, we were very much involved in humanitarian actions in Ukraine. support. We are still supporting shelters and these programs. Right.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But for organization which is not very big, it looks like a big waves, big like stream of water which is trying to erase. I want to say a few things which is still important in this circumstance. I would say that it's very important to stay connected to the mission, and we approach our organization as a mission-driven organization, because we know that in any cases, in any crisis, it's very important to stay connected and fight for human rights, because sometimes they are stepped to the background. It's like not the mainstream anymore, but they need to be every time. In humanitarian action, we saw the examples how we should still protect it. And sometimes we need support to still remain focus on our main mission, on our main goal mission of our activity, because the idea that came with money, of course, they are sometimes that big that also can just came as a ready-made solution, and we need to put all of our efforts to make this solution without having the original focus on the on our action. And we are still strongly sure in importance to work with people, to work with people who work with people, to need continuation of capacity building and education. I know that my colleagues will talk more about education. I will say more about also focus on local research, because things in our situations are changing so fast that sometimes national research or regional research is not enough, and it takes so much time. Then when the results are coming, it's already a situation changed, and we need to be very focused and have resources to pay attention to regular monitoring and regular research on what's going on near us, like in the nearest region where we work. I also wanted to say about the need of cooperation. There is very important cooperation with partners from the European Union, but I would say that it's also very important for Ukraine now to develop partnership with countries who actually had experience of post-war recovery of war, and European Union don't have this experience at all for more than 3 generations. So it's sometimes we need to build more connection with those who this Balkan region is very important right now, and we don't have enough programs which encourage this kind of cooperation. And we also need to have more contacts. I believe that it would be very fruitful for us to have more cooperation with other global south countries, because sometimes we have very common experience, and we have something to share in between, and to make our voices together more stronger. Because unfortunately, for such a long time, Russia's voice was so loud, and still, even yesterday during our conversation, I feel that it still affects the situation around us, and European countries especially. So we need to think really how to build this connection that can be useful in strengthening our voices also as underrepresented countries. And my last point was about that sometimes there are such problems that cannot be easily found like solution, but if we do not talk about them because they are not on the agenda, because they are not on the like already on the policy, we cannot like find a solution easily already. But I guess it's about the need of attention to. Okay, this example is it also, for example, this is information that we are focusing right now. We don't know what to do with the information which is against us because there is such a lot of lie around and what to do. And I don't have a solution, and I don't think that each of us separately can have the solution. But and maybe it cannot be solved just by this kind of events, these short speeches, but maybe we need to have more opportunity to work together, to have workshop on like searching for solutions for the future. Sorry for my a bit shaky speech. Thank you very much. I will end a bit earlier.
I think you have the right to be shaken. Yeah? So, and thanks for coming over. We'll try to summarize some of the reflection later, but first let's move on to Daria. And Daria is the deputy head of NGO GrlzWave. I don't know how you would pronounce that in Ukrainian, but you can say.
Yes, in Ukrainian it's Moderator. But we officially translated, so if you see girls, that's totally fine too. Yes, thank you for the invitation. Thank you for the invitation. It's incredibly important for me, and I also believe that for my colleagues too, to be here and to have this space where we can share our experiences, our views on what is going on. So yes, my name is Daria Chekalova, and I'm the deputy director of the NGO Girls. A non-profit organization operating in Ukraine since 2019. And as we mentioned, the COVID pandemic and its effects, I would actually really like to start my presentation from a point a couple of years ago when there was no war yet, but we were already seeing problems with the pandemic caused. And for our organization, it looked like we were planning a huge awareness raising project, because before the war, we were mainly an awareness raising NGO focusing on sexual and reproductive rights of women and girls, and working very much in the field of education and awareness raising and information dissemination. We were planning a huge project for the Ukrainian schools on menstrual health and hygiene, planning to cover more than 100,000 children. And that was late 2020. And the schools suddenly closed. We needed to review the project completely. We needed to review all the indicators, all of our approaches, all of our allocations. And that was something. The project was already ongoing, and that was a tremendous challenge for us. And as we like to say, and this is probably an unpleasant thing to say, because we are comparing to tremendous evils here, but it was the COVID pandemic that was the first to teach us what we can do in situations of real emergency, in situations where something can change completely. In a night, so you go to sleep one day thinking about one turn of events, and then the next day you wake up and you see that the world has changed already, and you need to provide solutions to fight with that. So we were lucky or unlucky, I don't know, enough to face that already in the pandemic and try to use what we've learned when the war started. When we understood that in one day we need to shift from being an educational awareness raising project to being a project supporting ACPs, supporting women and children here in the country, supporting those who suddenly became occupied or affected by the war in different ways. And that really, what we've learned, really added up to our flexibility and taught us how important it is to be flexible, to be quick learners, quick thinkers, to provide solutions that will be integral, that will include different groups, that will look into different, sometimes challenging and unfinding solutions. And that ability to adapt, we viewed as being very important, and this was life-saving for us and for our work since the beginning of the war, when we shifted to humanitarian assistance, legal support, to mental health and psychological support services for women and children, to in-kind assistance, to shelter support, and different other kinds of help that were specifically needed during the war. But in a very different and strange turn of events, what was probably one of our biggest strengths, our ability to be flexible and adapt, also became a problem for us because, I wanted to go back to Marco suggesting that we should also focus on what the new actors and the new forces coming to Ukraine maybe problematic and maybe lacking of. And unfortunately, that is the story with us, because all of the huge forces and huge actors coming to Ukraine right now, NGOs, UN organizations, different funding opportunities, different umbrella projects, they are trying to use the flexibility and fast pace and local context knowledge of the local NGOs, but instead they're just slowing us down. In most cases, it doesn't look like they're using our ability to adapt, but they are trying to integrate us into their agenda, into their processes, instead of using what we have, slowing us down with bureaucracy and with very challenging requests, very challenging and long-term processes of review, for example. And here I would really point out again what Yuliya mentioned, for need of rapid needs analysis. And I mean rapid, when I say rapid, they should be rapid. The context and the needs are changing very much, very often and very quickly. So we are very willing to learn more, to be subject to any capacity building, to enter new networks, new working groups, to seek new solutions, because we already know from the times of pandemic that this may be an answer to so many questions in the field. But what the capacity building really looks for us right now is big players in the field coming with the same trainings, same instruments, the same tools, lighting them over with us, teaching us over and over again of the same, instead of listening to what the needs really are, instead of making this process demand-driven and really based on requests and the capacity and knowledge already present in the field. So I would say that that was the problem and the solution, and I really I promised myself that I will focus as much as possible on solutions that we see, not only on the problems. And the solutions would be to look at the real needs, to look at the real expertise in the field, to provide them with tailored resources to grow and to develop and to increase their capacities, and be sensitive to their growth strategies, to their views, to how they would like to develop, what new things they would like to adopt, instead of trying to push them further with what is considered to be best practice in other contexts, probably very different from the Ukrainian one. So to be sensitive to the local knowledge and to the local context, and guided by requests made by the local actors. And I know for sure that this is possible, because for 9 partners, 9 donors that would not do that, there's always 1 or 2 or 3 which understand that completely, which are doing that. So we know for sure that it is possible, and we just need to scale that up for that to become a common knowledge, a common practice, to showcase a good example of collaborations, because there are so many of them delivering huge impact in Ukraine. So we know that this can be done, and we're very hopeful that we can use such platforms as this one to scale that up and to integrate that into different approaches. And one more separate thing I would like also to mention, which is kind of connected to what I was talking about, but also a little bit different, is the importance suddenly of the private sectors in many European countries, because we saw them participate in the emergency response actually from the very beginning of the war, and we saw so many good examples of collaboration between private sector, private actors from different European countries, and the Ukrainian civil society and the Ukrainian volunteer initiatives. And this kind of cooperation and support may be very difficult because it is often not institutional. It's often project bound. It's quicker. It's easier to use. It's less problematic in terms of monitoring. So it's very good for small organization, for grassroots organization, for small group initiatives. But it is often overlooked. So the European governments and the European civil society would not normally look into the potential and resources that private sectors have. But I would really like to highlight and stress that, for example, European governments can cooperate with their businesses to point them out, to visualize what good initiatives are there in Ukraine for the businesses, for example, to see where they can apply that, where they can cooperate. So I think that would be my last remark, and I would just really thank you again for participating and for including us.
Thank you very much, Daria. I'll be very quick, passing on the mic to Nadia, Tasmanaru, representative of FITT in Romania, that will correct me on how the name is pronounced. It's obvious. Then we have a challenge with mine later, right? But so first time out of Ukraine, over to you, and let's hear from your perspective.
Thank you. Yeah, my name is Nadia Tasmanaru.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you for giving us the chance to share a bit of our work, but also to share which are the challenges that we are facing. And unfortunately, and also fortunately, I think we have more chances to do this at international level than at national level. So you can get out of this a short glimpse on the ecosystem for the youth organizations in Romania. So yeah, I'm coming from Timiș County Youth Foundation, or FITT. We are established in Timișoara, in the western part of Romania, and we are a youth-led organization. We have been established in 1990, and we are an umbrella organization for other youth NGOs from the region. At the moment, we have 32 organizations as members, and we own and administrate the youth house in Timișoara, which is basically a youth center. It is, just for you to imagine, an 11,000 square meters youth center that has the quality label from the Council of Europe, the quality label for youth centers from the Council of Europe. So this is a recognition of the valuable work that we are doing in the field of youth work and working with the local community. We are the only one youth center in Romania who has this label, and only one of the 14 on the whole continent. What are we doing exactly? So I was mentioning youth work, but more specifically, we are organizing activities, programs that are dedicated to young people, to empower them to be active citizens, to help them get to know about their human rights, but also to foster and to encourage youth participation. And when I'm saying young people, I'm referring to people from 14 to 35, but of course that within our activities is not just the young people that are benefiting of our services, but it's the whole community. And here we can talk about children, adults, and also seniors, because we are also trying to foster intergenerational collaboration within our activity. Now, for introducing the lessons that we have learned during the pandemic and also during the humanitarian crisis, So during the pandemic, youth organizations have mobilized in order to support the local authorities into making sure that the safety measures are put in place, but also that the community has access to the products that they needed. So in this situation, what we have done actually, we have helped the municipality with sending volunteers for the call center that they have opened for the community, with providing aliments and the medicine for the people that were at high risk, or collecting donations and setting up computers that were donated for the pupils that did not have access to any device in order for being able to join the online school. And the youth house is open 24/7. And it was open 24/7 also during the pandemic time. So basically, we never closed our doors to the local community when it was needed. So then, when the war started in Ukraine, you might know already that a lot of Romanian organizations, but also individuals, were jumping in and trying to help even before the authorities to be there and to offer the support. So right at the beginning of March, FITT has set up a transit center for the refugees coming from Ukraine. So just for localization, Timișoara is in the western part of Romania and is close to the border with Hungary and Serbia. So a lot of Ukrainians were passing by in their way to the Western countries. So then we were able to engage with all the staff, all the volunteers, with the member organizations, and also with the local community who donated some of the things that were needed to establish this space. And we have opened a transit center for the Ukrainians that needed to stay for a short period of time before leaving Romania. And then in April last year, with the financial support of ActionAid, we have been able to start hiring both local and Ukrainian young people, which were engaged into offering services for the refugees who decided to stay in Timișoara and who found a safe place in Timișoara. So since then, we are offering youth work activities. We are offering language classes, psychological support, and also vocational counseling support, mainly to the Ukrainian people. But again, of course, this target group is extended also to kids, for example, and also to adults and seniors. And also at the moment, we are also running a school for Ukrainian kids and adolescents, which in the morning they come to join the classes, and then in the afternoon they have non-formal education, artistic classes, and events in order for them to socialize and to engage with the local young people. And examples of actions like this, I can say that they have proven that no matter the context in which the civil society is, at least in Romania, and we talk here about financial challenges, about human resources challenges, lack of support for the youth organizations, and especially for youth-led organizations, that there is a huge capacity of the NGOs, and that there is solidarity that somehow makes these people getting active and leave behind all the challenges that they are facing in their work. And we learned once again that the youth organizations in general have the capacity of adapting very fast. And because you were mentioning that somehow we went out of what we were doing usually, for us it was not the situation, because we were anyway working with young people. So then in this context, we have just extended our target group, so we can see the capacity of also adapting the methods and the tools that we have already developed in order for them to be also accessible and the right ones for the new target group that we have integrated in our work. But these capacities, unfortunately, are not enough, let's say, to overcome the challenges that the youth NGOs are facing. And the main challenge and the one that hurts the most, let's say, is the unpredictability of the financial sustainability. So for more context, there is no constant funding for the youth organizations in Romania from the government. So the youth organizations can only function project-based. So if we apply for projects, then we get the funding. But still, there is also an issue here because the fundings that we apply for, they do not allow the organizations to cover the salaries of the people. So somehow we may be expected to just volunteer and to do everything on a volunteer basis. And of course, the roots of this issue is actually that the government is not recognizing the importance of youth work and the impact that youth work can have on the local community. And we know that the civil society organizations should be there to jump in when the government is not doing its job right. And why they don't do so much on the youth field is exactly because they don't understand the role of young people in the community. So now I'm going to the support that we would need maybe from the INGOs. So it would be on the recognition of the work that we are doing, and this is also a good context, and thank you again for doing it, but also to highlight the importance and the impact of the grassroots youth work in our community. And added to this would also be maybe the support or the INGOs to back up, let's say, the advocacy initiatives that the grassroots organizations might have at national or local level. And one last thing would be the flexibility of the INGOs. And here I would talk about, for example, the flexibility in budget. So to offer more space on the eventual changes that might appear during the implementation of the project. And this is applicable especially in case that the needs of the main target group are changing, because we were also speaking about the fast changes that might appear in the needs. But also another example on flexibility can be on the flexibility of the target groups that we are reaching, because again, for example, in Romania, young people are from 14 to 35 years old. So this is our main target group. So flexibility from INGOs would also be in making sure that we include everyone and that we don't leave anyone out of the main focus group. And these measures that I proposed are related to recognizing the experience and the work that the grassroots organizations are doing. But most important, I think this is about trusting the organizations that are working in the field. So it's about trust and creating the bond and giving the power and empowering the youth organizations to act locally and to bring their experience on board in order for them to be able to implement activities, projects, and programs funded by the INGOs. Thank you.
Thank you, Nadia. Yeah, a lot of practical insights. We'll try to make sense of all the input that we have received, but I first would like to call on Anna Tavadze from Georgia. I know it's a bit of a disadvantage to be online and not being with us, but please have the floor and participate fully. Thanks for coming in. Over to you.
Thank you. Can you hear my voice?
Perfectly.
Yes, thank you. So greetings, everyone. I'm Anna Tavadze, and I'm joining you from Tbilisi, Georgia. I want to start by saying Slava Ukraini, glory to Ukraine. Our hearts ache for Ukrainian people who have endured immeasurable suffering in the face of Russian aggression. But despite this brutal invasion, the people of Ukraine have shown remarkable courage. And I just want to express my gratitude towards Ukrainian people. We stand in solidarity with you. As Georgians, we know what you're going through. We understand better than most nations, I would say. So we honor your unwavering spirit and unbreakable resolve. As for today, I want to thank the organizers for this conference and for giving me the opportunity to share my experience and share some thoughts about women-led and youth-led organizations in Georgia. I would also like to comment on some of the political and social realities of civil society organizations and non-governmental organizations in our region, and convey some of the key messages to those interested in partnering with us or supporting us in our missions. So today I represent GrlzWave. We are a queer, feminist, women and youth-led organization in Georgia. Our organization was founded in 2019 by amazing three brave young women, Tekla, Sopo, and Atina, who are unfortunately not joining me today. Our goal has always been to empower women and marginalized groups in Georgia, increase their representation in today's society, and challenge gender inequality, disabilities, discrimination, gender-based violence, sexual and reproductive health education, and other issues through open discussions. So our approach has always been and still is deeply embedded in destroying stigmas and reducing stereotypes through informal education initiatives. We primarily function as a multimedia and digital activist platform, and we try to raise awareness through our educational content. Our organization is at the forefront of the fight against harmful stereotypes and inequalities that still perpetuate social injustice in the Georgian society, unfortunately. And we always try to push for projects that stand in solidarity with diverse individuals fighting for gender equality. At GrlzWave, I would say that we truly believe in education, advocacy, and activism as key components in promoting gender equality and empowering marginalized communities. We also believe in the power of personal stories to challenge these harmful stereotypes. That's why we're committed to sharing the voices and experiences of marginalized communities through our profile style videos. You can browse through our content on social media. If you just type in GrlzWave, you'll understand what we're all about and how we try to educate audiences about social issues that matters most to us and to them. We truly believe in the power of connection and interaction, which is why we have put so much effort into our social media presence, because our goal is to listen to our audiences and receive their feedback and engage with them on a deeper level. And our efforts have been appreciated on various levels. And I would say that probably the one that I'm the most proud of is that we've received awards for defending human rights from institutions such as French Embassy in Georgia and the Media for Equality organization. You know, these awards are truly a testament to the hard work and dedication of our team. And I'm glad that we're recognized for our efforts in promoting equality and defending human rights. I think my colleagues would agree that as a women-led and youth-led organization, we face many, many challenges, and I would like to focus on several of those issues. For instance, in Georgia, we face societal and cultural opposition, as Georgia, I'm sure you know, is a conservative country with deeply ingrained gender roles and norms. LGBTQ plus issues are often stigmatized, and feminist activism is still seen as a threat to traditional issues. We also face legal restrictions, as there are no effective executions of anti-discrimination laws in Georgia protecting LGBT individuals in areas such as employment and housing, for instance. Additionally, we often face safety concerns as feminists and activists for human rights. We're constantly at risk of violence and discrimination. Furthermore, as a grassroots organization, funding is a significant challenge. Only a limited amount of donors and funders are willing to support organizations that challenge traditional values and focus on marginalized groups, coupling with significant opposition from both state entities in Georgia and propaganda machines that are directly or indirectly connected to the government and to Kremlin propaganda. So in the face of these challenges, it is all the more difficult to ensure the well-being of our employees. Unfortunately, to be quite honest with you, we simply do not even have the financial resources to even guarantee monthly salaries or health insurance, which is leaving us in a very precarious position. However, despite these obstacles, we still remain committed to our mission, and we do everything we can within our power. As an organization, we pride ourselves on being open to collaborations, partnerships, and teamwork of any kind with individuals or groups who share our values, because we are all about values and a shared value system. However, it is crucial to recognize that NGOs and CSOs in our regions face numerous challenges, especially in this current geopolitical context. And I would like to draw your attention to the protests that took place in Tbilisi against the proposed foreign agents bill earlier this month, and I want to tell you a little bit about it. So this legislation that the parliament, Georgian parliament, tried to pass would have required NGOs, CSOs, and media organizations receiving more than 20% of foreign funding to register as foreign agents, or agents of foreign influence. Despite the government's claims that it was necessary for transparency, we protesters argued that it would passing of this bill would limit democratic participation and constitute an attack on civil society. Despite numerous warnings from the European Union, the Georgian government attempted to convince the public that the bill was necessary to track the spending of NGOs and media organizations and other groups. However, the proposed legislation, and if you're interested in this further, I'm sure you can find enough information, proposed legislation closely resembled a similar law adopted by Russia, which led to the closure of numerous independent NGOs and media organizations since 2012. So the protests lasted several days, and we saw thousands of people taking to the streets. Unfortunately, the police met them with a heavy-handed response using tear gas, water cannons, pepper spray, and I myself was a victim of it. You know, dozens of protesters were arrested, and many reported being subjected to police brutality. So this is what we have to deal with as a civil society in Georgia on a daily basis, on a monthly basis, when we go out and protest. So the government eventually dropped the bill, but we still remain cautious. While this series of events is seen as a victory for us, for the civil society, we remain cautious, and we call for further action to ensure that the proposed legislation is not reintroduced in the future. So deriving from this, I think it is essential to note that the passage of this law would have had catastrophic consequences on civil society in Georgia. It would have merely limited our means of operation, resulting in the cancellation of any and all services for marginalized groups. They even, when you look at the draft of the bill, they could even not only just financially monitor our activities, but even take us to jail if necessary, if they would consider any services that we provide for marginalized groups as an action of foreign influence. So it would have restricted the working and the expression capacities of anyone attempting to defend democratic values in our country. Therefore, we must remain vigilant and continue to fight for the fundamental rights of free expression and democratic participation. And I'm proud to say that GrlzWave was, we proudly took part in the civil society protest, which were instrumental in safeguarding this democratic progress. However, I think it is essential to recognize that this is an ongoing effort that requires sustained commitment. Georgia's strategic location, acting as a gateway between Europe and Asia, underscores the critical importance of maintaining stability and maintaining relations between East and the West. And so, I was thinking about what key messages to deliver to the West in supporting Georgian quest. Thank you for, I know I have 1 minute, in supporting Georgian quest for human rights and democratic principles. And we would want the West to hear us. The West can adopt a more effective approach. Firstly, of course, with providing more financial and technical assistance to civil society and organizations in Georgia, who are working to promote these principles, because this can go a long way in ensuring that they have necessary resources to carry out their work effectively. Secondly, engaging with the Georgian government and pressure them to uphold human rights and democratic values. It's crucial. However, there are ways that we can be more strategic about this. And my last point is that youth-led organizations are a pivotal demographic in Georgia, and we play a vital role in advancing democratic values and human rights. Trusting and empowering these organizations can provide them with the support and resources that they need. Additionally, I would say eliminating some of the toughest bureaucratic processes that hinder effective support, such as delayed in providing resources, is essential. And finally, building more efficient partnerships with individuals and groups that have a better understanding of local political context can help ensure that the support is more effective. Above all, the events in Georgia must serve as a reminder of the importance of defending fundamental rights, such as the right to free expression, because the fight for freedom is a continuous battle. It requires continuous commitment. It's an everyday battle, and we remain strong. Women and youth-led organizations in Georgia, we remain strong in the pursuit of our principles, and we're ready to fight this battle with you, with your support every single day. Thank you so much for having me today and giving me the opportunity and the platform to speak my mind. Thank you.
Thank you, and I know that from a distance it's difficult also to feel the vibe in the room, and I didn't want to interrupt you, but but we are on time. I think only a couple of minutes delay, and we can catch up because there is a little bit of space for questions, one or two maybe, and then we'll try to wrap up to respect the speakers of the second session as well. Anyone from the room? Or even out? I cannot actually read properly if there are questions coming online. Yes, please. We have two questions from the group. Come here.
Thank you.
Actually, come here so they can see you.
Thank you to all the speakers. I wanted to ask you, all of you who are at the table, if you can share any experience of collaboration within the sub-region from organizations among yourselves, not with the international NGOs. If you have had that experience, if you see this as an interest area for the future. Thank you.
We'll collect a couple and we'll respond. Yes, please.
Thanks a lot. It was a similar question. I wanted to ask you if you have seen that the war has had any effect in the way we cooperate in the region. Have you seen any positive out of this tragic situation that is bringing that you can feel now that you have greater support in Eastern Europe and you are collaborating more?
Thank you. I think it's three, including Anna, of course, if she wants. Anyone wants to try a response? Yuliya?
We have in my organization one brilliant.
Lungs.
Okay. One experience which is connected to work with international organizations, but where we have regular cooperation in ecosystem in region, where other partners are also connected in different topics, and where we can support each other in our capacity. If we are the most experienced in engaging youth, we are invited by other organizations who are working, for example, in field of inclusion, to work together where our topics are like connected. And we invite other organizations from ecosystem to help us with fields where we are not that strong. The importance of this cooperation is also that we can see the different background what like other partners can have in their countries, and other opportunities which we don't have, and probably we can also discuss. We can also be more effective in discussing who have what kind of policy, even on inner inside of the organization activity, and share experience on what really work, not like just take something that is written, but something that is tried. And also in this case, it is very important, like here we have also, when we are together standing for similar agenda, where we can see that we all have similar challenges, and international organization and our local organization from few countries, we can have like similar, more stronger voice together for standing, for example, for strategic planning for organization, and not for just this short project activity.
Yeah, so I completely agree with what Yuliya said, and I think this collaboration is really important, and it is really, so to answer your question, I'm sorry, it is really going on. So inside Ukraine, we're collaborating very much with different civil society organizations with different missions and strategic, vision and values, and especially women-led organizations. So we form clusters, we form networks. They're well established, so they're official, have meetings. We do that, but it is also very important. A collaboration with Poland, for example. So I'm speaking about that because there are no Polish representatives right here, right now. But Poland and Polish civil society is incredible in answering, responding to the Ukrainian emergency. And women-led organizations there are doing a fantastic job that I would like to highlight, because to stand in there right now. And also, this is a little bit out of the region that we're focusing on right now. But I think it's important, and I wanted to mention that we've had some very fruitful collaboration and exchange of experience with Bosnia and Herzegovina, which is very similar, which is the country that like Georgia, can understand, the civil society can understand very clearly what we are going through, and they have this experience. So we had dedicated discussions about conflict-related sexual violence and gender-based violence, which unfortunately was a huge case in Bosnia, and it is repeated in many very similar ways in Ukraine right now. And they have some incredible policies and incredible research and experts in the field, because their war happened almost 30 years ago, and for these 30 years they were building on this response. They have shared some very wonderful and effective strategies and points of information with us, so which is really important. And but there is always a space to do more, to collaborate more, and there are always organizations that are still not visible for international partners. So we always can do effectively more.
Okay. We are also collaborating with a lot of organizations, either at local, national, or international level. But I will just focus now on some examples within the humanitarian context. So at local level, we also collaborate and have some common events organized together with the other organizations who are working with Ukrainian refugees. And for example, we have chosen some key moments, and we had a full event all together in which everyone was contributing with different activities. Then at the national level, we are collaborating, of course, with the other youth foundations in the country, with maybe, for example, mirror events in order to foster and to encourage the social inclusion and the integration of the Ukrainians. And then at international level, for example, last month we have organized 2 training courses for youth workers who are working with Ukrainians, even if they are refugees or they are working with them in Ukraine. It was a training that was organized with the support of the Council of Europe, and also we have collaborated under that with a youth organization from Ukraine, but also with some local authorities that were having educational or youth workers in their team, so that we offered the chance to a common learning experience, but also a space where to share experience on how it is to work with the Ukrainians that are in Romania, and to work also with the young Ukrainians that are still in Ukraine. So these are just some punctual examples on the collaboration so far.
Thank you very much. I think we are running a little bit late, so we'll have to wrap up now. But I think just to do it quickly, we heard about some of the pre-existing challenges, some of the short, medium, and long-term challenges. So amongst the pre-existing challenges, there is societal opposition, as highlighted particularly by Anna, regulatory frameworks as well, that she highlighted. In the short run, there is this dynamics around flexibility, both existing as something positive highlighted by Daria, but also overexploited in a way. And there is a need or a call for the flexibility not only to be requested by local organization, but also to be offered to them in terms of budget and the target groups. There is also in the medium run and recognition that it is a challenge for the organizations that are operating led by women and youth to keep focused on the transformative agenda that they had before the war, as I think Yuliya started to mention in the very beginning. There is a need, as focus is retained, that the pre-existing work is recognized and there is trust in the local organization, because they have a history, they have the links, they have, as we heard in the last few minutes, also the connection beyond their local level. So that is also very important. And in the long run, I think we heard beyond organizations, the situation, if you want, from a geopolitical perspective, is opening for processes that need completion. The role of the European Union in maybe facilitating the accession where it is still pending, so that Ukraine in particular comes out of a gray zone, is very important. But cooperation, interstate cooperation and agency cooperation beyond the states is also important. We heard with neighbor countries, for example, the Balkans, because of the experience that they had a few decades back, but also beyond that. That is where an organization like ActionAid, bringing the experience of countries from the local south that have experienced trauma and war, can be very important. We also heard that the cooperation that is required and valued is not just between civil society and the state, but also the private sector somehow has something to offer. So all of these things will be taken into account in our own reflections and learning. Thank you very much for being with us, and thank you for the patience for getting us 3 minutes late. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good working day. Bye-bye.
Yeah.